Jeffrey Toobin tells us what it is that we should think about when it comes to the sentencing guidelines that Ketanji Brown Jackson has laid down. And yes, I am talking about that Jeffrey Toobin. So we'll talk just a bit about what's going on with that. In other news, a series of deadly tornadoes goes across Texas and New Orleans. All my friends in Texas are safe, and I just sent off a tweet for all my friends in the lower Mississippi area to make sure that they're all safe too. So we'll talk just a bit about what's going on with that. Jen Psaki, triple vaxxed, social distanced, advocate for having being safe with the COVID, and also having had the COVID 3 times already herself, has tested positive for COVID conveniently right before a Biden trip to Europe. So we'll talk just a bit about that. And the Don't Say Gay crowd is out in force to tell us how horrible it is that you can't say gay in Florida, except for, well, you can still say gay in Florida. I don't know. It's going to be all this and more over on Contemporary. You're just mad you can't date me. I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Completely lost my train of thought after I did the cold open this morning. I had no idea. I'm like, what scene do I do next? And then I keep looking over on the other screen, because my monitors are all over here. But then I keep looking over to the other screen, like, what am I missing here? And I do this every day, and I've been doing this every day for 543 episodes. Well, occasionally you get a slip. Sometimes I even leave my microphone off after we watch a video, and I get up off the chair for a second while we're watching the video. But we're here. We got to get started because we've got a ton to get to again, because it's a day that ends in Y, and Biden is in the White House. I don't remember, by the way, us constantly having 40, 50 tabs when Trump was in office. I don't remember that. And I do think that I might be taking a little bit too much out of some stories like the Ukraine stuff and whatnot, but man, it just seems like there's so much more going on with Biden as the president than there was with Trump. Because I remember when we started this show out, even though it was in the midst of the pandemic, it was usually a half an hour show on a weekday morning, and now we're consistently at 2 hours. But that's what we say. Needs more caffeine. Bang Energy. The nectar of the gods. And by the way, if Bang Energy was paying me, this would be in their vessel, not a Quick Trip cup. Let's get started, shall we? But before we do, make sure you guys go over and check out turnsofpagesproductions.com. Turnsofpagesproductions.com, once we get launched, will be your one-stop shop for all of your news and commentary needs. Name docs coming soon. I'm actually going to I'm going to send a DM over to Brian Nichols to let him know what we're about, so he has an idea what the questions to ask about, because it's going to be more than just the name docs. I do want to tell the world and the Brian Nichols audience what it is that we're trying to do and how we're trying to sell liberty based on breaking the grip of the big names. That's a big part of it. Sell our values by showing the people that we're just like them instead of the people in the suits that cost more than your house, as I typically say on this program. But go and check that out. Go check out great shows such as The Daily Ignoramus, The Breakdown with Birkenhoff, The R-Rated Conservative, The new upcoming project with Britt and Sean Hickman and the Porch Boys. Porch Boys were on fire last night. They were having a lot of fun last night as they went through there. But go and check out all those programs. And with the name docs coming, because of the way that GiveSendGo structures their stuff, we can start going with GiveSendGo as well. So you guys all know because you're on the inside. But yep, government name has to be on the front of GiveSendGo. And most of the people on Twitter have no idea what my government name is. So that's why we're doing the name reveal over on the Brian Nicholas Show. So when people look at this and they see that this is for J. Edgar, we can also come back out and, people don't look at the GiveSendGo and say, oh, J. Edgar, I know that guy. He sucks. But I know who that guy is. Oh, who the fuck is this? Down here. So, yes, I know it's on the screen, but I'm still not going to say it out loud off of there. Who the hell is that guy? But definitely go check that out. You guys are in the know on the side. GiveSendGo.com/Turns of Pages 101. And yes, once the name reveal is done, we are going to be starting an aggressive fundraising campaign to try to get that $2,000 filled. So definitely go and check that out. You guys who are in the know get to come back and donate early if you'd like to. Thank you to Quest Fanning for doing that. And come and join us. TurnsOfPagesProductions.com. Let's start with the Dow. The Dow was up throughout the day yesterday, up about 0.75% throughout the day. So it was a little up, but not a major one. It was another one of those days where it seems weird because they jumped up to the top and then they just kind of sat there throughout the rest of the day. It didn't really go up and down. Like, it went up and down, but it just kind of stayed in the same general region throughout the day. So I always get a little bit suspicious of those days. Like, is there some honking going on here? Or is what's going on here? Oh, wait, we can't say honk honk anymore because, the ADL says Heil Hitler and stuff like that. So that's what we see up off of that. Looking in at the Bitcoin was down yesterday, but it was another, basically just kind of even day throughout the day yesterday, down to $41,920 and 90 US cents per coin, or $450.4 down. That is 1.06% that it lost throughout the day yesterday. Looking in at your scrap metal, looks like up on the averages, everything has turned back into the green. Copper took a major jump yesterday, because all of the copper plays, including brass and brass shells, have turned into the green. Steel as well, except for stainless steel, iron, etc. are all in the green. Stainless steel is down. Aluminum is more mixed, but enough to keep it back up into the green here. Aluminum siding is up. Aluminum copper fin is up. Radiators are down. Cans are up. Sheet aluminum is down. Rims are down. And looking at the other plays that are out there, electric motors with copper are pretty much the only thing with copper that are down right now. Ballasts are down. Lead is down. Car and truck batteries are up. Catalytic converters are all up except for the large foreign cat, which is down. Compressors are down. Alternators are up. Carbide is up. Hard drives are down. Motherboards are up. Power supplies, low-grade boards, PC tower are all down on the day. Remember, these are national averages that you see here. Your individual scrapyard may be different, but go and check that out. Recycle, of course. Keep it green, dudes. And go check out what it is that you can take over there and put a little bit of money back in your pocket. All right, let's see what IBD has to say for the morning. Extend access sale. Get 1 month for only $29. Or I can just keep reading the article that you put up here every day. Dow futures fall as oil prices jump. Apple, Tesla shows new buy points. From Scott Latonin. I love this song, by the way. This was almost the intro for KTZed Redemption for spring, but I chose the Mall Lo-Fi instead. This is probably one of my favorite ones that's on this playlist. It is called Nostalgic Tides, and it's a remix off of something from Chrono Cross, which I've never played, but I also still very much enjoy it. Alright, Dow futures drifted lower Wednesday morning, pausing after Tuesday's strong gains. Treasury yields eased lower, while U.S. oil prices jumped above $112 a barrel, and Apple and Tesla show new buy points following Tuesday's advances. We will keep changing policy until the gas price raises, until you all buy your Teslas. Before Wednesday's open, Adobe and General Mills reported quarterly earnings results. Adobe shares slid more than 3% early Wednesday, and GM rallied more than 2%. Among the Dow Jones stocks, I think that's a typo because that makes no sense grammatically. Apple dropped 0.4% and Microsoft moved down 0.5% in today's stock market. United Health, a Dow Jones stock to watch, finished Tuesday in a buy range after a recent breakout. I have no idea what the hell that was. Somebody move something upstairs. Electric vehicle leader Tesla skidded more than 1% early Wednesday, threatening to give us up a part of Tuesday's gains. Amid the stock market's young uptrend, IBD leaderboard stock Arista Networks, Broadcom, Alpha and Omega Semiconductor, Global Foundries, and CDS are Wednesday's top stocks to buy and watch. Arista, Microsoft, and Tesla are IBD leaderboard stocks. Arista was also Tuesday's IBD 50 stocks to watch pick, and Broadcom was featured in this week's Stocks Nearby Zone column. On the Dow today, on the futures, before Wednesday's market open, futures slid 0.3% versus fair value on the Dow, while the S&P moved down 0.4%. NASDAQ was down 0.8% versus fair value. So you had a good day, 0.75% up, and you're just about ready to lose all that again on the futures. But of course, as they always say, this does not reflect what is going on in your next actual trading session, so we'll watch that. Among ETFs, the NASDAQ 100 tracker Invesco QQQ Trust fell 0.8%, and the SPDR 500 ETF was down 0.5% before Wednesday's open. The 10-year Treasury yield paused on Thursday, holding steady at 2.37%. Tuesday's advance to 2.37% left the yield at its highest point since since May of 2019. U.S. oil prices jumped Wednesday morning with West Texas Intermediate crude up more than 2% to trade briefly above $112 a barrel. So you get to this point where the gas prices were starting to come down, and they're still down around here, by the way, because the oil prices came down, and then all of a sudden now everything is back up again. It's like there's still going to be big problems off of this. I mean, this isn't major news anymore because I don't think we're above $4 a gallon on the national average again. And I know that in some, especially safe states, they're still holding the gas up. Looking at you, California. But like here, swing state land and everything else, they are holding it back down, whether artificially or naturally. But we'll see what happens with that. Let's grab one briefly from investing.com. Dow futures fall 110 points. Fed policy. Biden's trip to Europe in focus. From investing.com. By Peter Nurse. U.S. stocks are seen opening marginally lower Wednesday as investors continue to digest recent moves by the Federal Reserve ahead of the U.S. President Biden's trip to Europe to discuss further sanctions on Russia. At 7:10 a.m. Eastern Time, the Dow futures contract was down 110 points. S&P futures traded 17 points or 0.4% lower. NASDAQ futures dropped 85 points or 0.6%. The Federal Reserve raised the benchmark lending rate by a quarter point as its meeting last week, the first increase since December of 2018, and Chairman Jerome Powell pointed Monday to more aggressive moves in the future in order to combat soaring inflation. San Francisco Federal Reserve President Mary Daly, normally seen as leaning towards the dovish end of the spectrum, added her voice Tuesday to those calling for the Fed to raise interest rates quickly. Russia's ongoing war with Ukraine and the associated sanctions have exacerbated already high energy and commodity prices, adding to the concerns that the U.S. Central Bank has over domestic inflation. President Brandon travels to Europe Wednesday to meet with allies of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization and European Union to discuss the West's response to Russia, amid expectations that further measures to punish Moscow are likely, and we'll talk about that later on. So, that's what we see coming off of that. Let's get into the main news of the day. And we are going to start with a meme from our own Arvolt. Thank you, Arvolt, for that. Because Arvolt goes the extra mile. Every time you ask Arvolt to make a meme, Arvolt goes the extra mile. I sent a DM to Arvolt yesterday. I said, can you put a New World Order t-shirt from the 90s, like the that was WCW. Yes, that was WCW in the 90s. Can you put that t-shirt on Biden? And the first thing that I get back was a picture of Biden, like this, which was amazing, with Hollywood Hogan to his left, and another wrestler from the White and Black that I didn't recognize. because I was more WWE than WCW. And then apparently might be wrong, went out and perfected this, because now we see Biden with his New World Order shirt, with Klaus Schwab on the left, and St. Anthony of Fauci, hallowed be his name, the patron saint of medicine, on his right, or on our right, rather. So that's going to get distributed, because that's amazing. I love that. Always the extra mile with Arvold. Thank you. And the New World Order, of course. There was a liberal world order after World War II, and now we're going to have a new world order. I like that. That was good. And apparently Arvold says you can spread that around. He's got his watermark on there too, so ask him. He'll provide you the image for that, and yeah, you can go spread that around. That is great. Thank you, Arvold. All right, let's get the F's out of the way for the morning here. So first, we're going to look into New Orleans, which I've checked to see. I put the tweet out. I got one response back, but I put the tweet out to see who is all safe out here. Looks like a couple of people that I tweeted out are safe for. I checked with all my friends in Texas too, but I knew all of them on Discord, so I could DM them. But looking in from Yahoo News, 1 dead and multiple injuries reported as 2 tornadoes hit New Orleans area on Tuesday night. This is from Maria Clark, Greg Hilburn, and Andrew J. Yawn, Lafayette Daily Advertiser. So this is coming to Yahoo News from a local paper. The National Weather Service confirmed 2 tornadoes hit the New Orleans area Tuesday night as a line of severe weather made its way across the region. 1 death and multiple injuries were reported by St. Bernard Sheriff Jimmy Pullman during a news conference, according to the Associated Press. Damage from the storms has been reported across the metro area. We have widespread confirmed damage in the New Orleans area, including Arabi, Gretna, and 9th Ward areas, and a second coming off of Lake Pontchartrain in Slidell, said Ben Schott, the lead meteorologist at the National Weather Service New Orleans station. We'll be out doing surveys on the damage tomorrow. New Orleans Mayor LaToya Cantrell said in a statement Tuesday night that there have been no reports of casualties or significant damages to Orleans Parish. She added that officials are coordinating emergency response efforts in affected areas, the lower 9th Ward and the New Orleans East. Our partners at Energy are working to restore power to the 8,000 customers impacted. Residents should avoid all travel that isn't essential to provide an opportunity for the professionals to handle the situation, she said. As of 10:30 p.m., more than 8,000 people were without power in New Orleans East and 9th Lower Ward area, according to Entergy. Governor John Bell Edwards' office, in a statement on Tuesday night, said that they were tracking multiple reports of tornadoes in those areas and in portions of St. Tammany Parish. GOSEP has been monitoring the weather all day, and the state agencies, including the State Fire Marshal, are working to assist local governments as needed. For now, we urge residents to monitor weather alerts and heed the advice of their local officials. Please do not leave your homes if you're safe to view damage. We will know much more about the level of damage and the impact on the community in the coming hours, and unfortunately, at first light. So this was breaking. I found this out as I was waking up today, because by the time I went to bed, these tornadoes had not hit yet. But yes, if you know somebody in the New Orleans area, go and check on them. And again, I know that there are a few people out there that are in my list that are in close to the area, but not actually in New Orleans. But that's what we see off of that. Let's also grab one from our friends over in Texas. From the Daily Mail, heartrending drone footage shows dozens of homes destroyed by Texas tornadoes that left at least 1 dead as blind cat is rescued from wrecked animal shelter and named NATO. Oh, I see what you did there. By the Associated Press and Matt McNulty for DailyMail.com. Disturbing drone footage shows a Texas town in ruins after tornadoes tore through the American Southwest late Monday. The clip shared by Reuters Tuesday morning gives a better idea of the mass destruction caused by cyclones in cities across central Texas and eastern Oklahoma, showing rows of houses literally ripped apart by the storm. The system, which has already snuffed out the life of one Texas woman and injured dozens of others, is now moving east across the Lone Star State towards Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama, the National Weather Service Storm Prediction Centers say, where it may possibly trigger a regional severe weather outbreak. The town in the footage, a small, usually sleepy suburb of Round Rock, saw several tornadoes rip through its framework on Monday night, seeing dozens of homes, businesses, and properties destroyed. Oof. F and a half. Look at that. On Tuesday, when the 2-minute clip was shot, the power was still out in that area and roads still closed. No casualties have yet been reported by the small Texas town, located less than 20 minutes from Austin, as police and citizens continue to search through the debris left by the rampaging cyclones and high-speed winds. So, yeah, that's your drone footage there. Some more of it there. Man, that's going to be some definite rebuilding. Goodness. It's always funny to think, like, what gets hurt and what doesn't, because it looks like that house barely got touched, but that one just had most of its roof ripped off. No. Let me rephrase that, because that's not most of its roof. That is most of its roof. Holy sh... That's like all of its roof. Yeah, a lot of the same block. Let's look at the video here for just a moment. Does not look like there's any volume for this video. Yeah, man, look at all that. Imagine that. Like, I've, luckily enough, only really lived through one tornado in my life, and, the small town that I grew up in, even there wasn't that much damage. You know, we didn't have roofs ripped off or anything else like that. It did pick up the porch in the house that I grew up in and push it up into the house itself. The porch was an afterthought, of course. But, yeah, we didn't see anything like this, so... Condolences go out to these people as well. All of my Texas friends are safe. If you know anybody in the Texas area, make sure and go check on them as well. Alright, we're going to move on. Let's go talk... Oh, we have an update on the police story out of Pennsylvania, too. I was about to say, let's go talk about Ketanji Brown Jackson. But we have an update on the Pennsylvania police story. Woman charged in crash that killed 2 Pennsylvania State Police troopers and another man previously tweeted, "If you ask me, I'm the best drunk driver ever." A 21-year-old woman is facing a bevy of charges after she allegedly hit and killed 2 police officers, and another individual driving under the influence is listed among a litany of charges. Reports indicate that the woman, Jayana Tanea Webb, had tweeted in January, "If you ask me, I'm the best drunk driver ever." The incident occurred on March 21st, according to a press release. People dialed 911 to report an individual. Oh, well, apparently that video is going to suddenly have sound. The incident occurred on March 21st, and according to the press release, people dialed 911 to report an individual walking on I-95. Troopers Martin F. Mack III and Brandon T. Siska were seeking to secure that individual, Reyes Rivera Oliveras, in their vehicle when the deadly incident took place. The deaths of Trooper Mack and Siska, along with Mr. Oliveras, a civilian, were attempting to help to safety on I-95, are tragedies, Philadelphia DA Larry Krasner said in a statement. My office will now seek to ensure that this defendant is held accountable for her alleged actions that resulted in the senseless loss of life. The DA's office detailed the lengthy list of charges Webb is facing, including 3 counts of murder in the 3rd degree, 3 counts of involuntary manslaughter, 2 counts of manslaughter of law enforcement officer, 2nd degree, 3 counts of reckless endangerment of another person, 3 counts of homicide by vehicle while driving, 3 counts of homicide by vehicle, DUI, driving at safe speed, careless driving, and reckless driving. So, of course, this is going to be another situation where they come back and they throw spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks. So, I mean, a lot of these charges actually can exist together. I will be going and checking that a little bit more because I do want to come back and see exactly what the definitions are, just like we did in Minnesota, because some of these will have different definitions as you go from state to state, but some of these definitely cannot exist together. We'll see what happens with that and where they go, because yeah, some of them are contradictions. We'll see what happens with that. The Pennsylvania State Troopers Association described the deceased law enforcement officers as... Quick, is Ron Helton here? Because can we say that about cops when he's here? As heroes in a statement. So, again, in one of the few instances where police were actually trying to help somebody, not going out and giving fines for little things to collect for the state, they had to lose their lives. And it's a tragedy when anybody loses their life, but especially when it is somebody who's being a public servant and actually doing the good things that they do, rather than what most people see is when their interaction with the police is going on, it's the bad thing. So that's what we see coming off of that. Alright, now let's talk about Ketanji Brown Jackson. And we're going to start with our story about Lindsey Graham, who is probably going to be the centerpiece for this entire fucking circus. I predict that now. Graham storms out of Jackson's SCOTUS hearing after Durbin-Gitmo clash, from Mark Moore. Senator Lindsey Graham walked out of Tuesday's Senate hearing for the Supreme Court nominee Ketanji Brown Jackson during a clash with the Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Dick Durbin over the release of terror detainees from Guantanamo Bay, exclaiming at one point that he wouldn't care if they died in prison without a trial. Yes, this is a member of your government telling you he wouldn't care if somebody goes without due process. Graham had grilled Jackson about her time representing Gitmo detainees while she was a federal public defender in D.C., and pointed out that those released from the military prison in Cuba often returned to the battlefield to kill Americans, with some even ending up in high-ranking Taliban positions. The South Carolina lawmaker also ranted against far-left groups who advocated for Jackson's nomination at the expense of Graham's preferred candidate, Palmetto State Federal Judge J. Michelle Childs. I'm telling you, sugar, I'm going to cause some drama if you don't put this South Carolina woman up in there. It's going to be some drama for you. Alright, I got to fix the fucking Nightbot because that was a perfectly acceptable use of emojis. I want to make a note of that. Hold on. Fix Nightbot. I'm gonna fix that. Actually, it looks like he got you for the caps because you must have, when you did the LUL, must have done that in caps. Because that's what it looks like he got you for, not the emojis. But I know he yells about emojis, too. Alright. Oh, does that not work on the Twitch side? I know it works on the YouTube side, because I've used it on the YouTube side. I've checked it. Alright, I will notate that. Because it'll actually be in the same program. Every group that wants to pack the court, that believes that this court is a bunch of right-wing nuts, and trust me, I only like the stuff out of left nuts, who are going to destroy America, that consider the Constitution trash. All ones you pick, Graham told Jackson. And we don't have video, but we do have the still images, because there he is, getting up and storming out. This is all I can say, that so many of these left-wing radical groups will destroy the laws we noted, declared on Michelle Childs, and supported you is problematic for me, he said. At that point, Durbin spoke up and said that Jim Clyburn, who advocated for Childs to be Biden's voice, was backing Jackson's confirmation. On the issue of Guantanamo, there are currently 39 detainees remaining. The annual budget is $549 million per year, Durbin said. Each of these detainees is being held at the expense of $13 million per year. That's your taxpayer dollars at work right there. If they were to be incarcerated at the Supermax Federal Prison in Colorado, the amount would be dramatically less. Graham then interjected and asked Durbin if he would be willing to support indefinite detention under the law of war for these detainees in the U.S. if Gitmo were closed. As Durbin began to respond, the Republican interjected, "The answer is no!" The system has failed miserably, and advocates to change the system, like she was advocating, would destroy our ability to protect this country, Graham said, indicating Jackson. Sorry, I didn't read that in the Graham accent. We're at war. We're not fighting a crime, sugar. This is not some passage of time event. As long as they're dangerous, I hope they all die in jail. If you're going back and kill Americans, it won't bother me one bit if 39 of them die in prison, baby. That's a better outcome than letting them go. If it costs $500 million to keep them in jail, keep them in jail because they're going to go back there and fight. What was not pointed out in this story is that as soon as Graham got outside of the Senate chamber after he stormed out, he looked up to the heavens, dropped to his knees, and says, "Are you proud of me, Johnny? Are you proud of me, McCain? Did I do good enough for you? Do I get to go up into heaven?" So, yes, that is Lindsey Graham throwing a temper tantrum, as usual. And that's the thing with Lindsey Graham, too, is he actually does make good points every once in a while. About 40% of the time, he's a good senator. He's a good, freedom-loving, smaller government senator. But it's just once he gets into this warmonger thing, which is, again, the reason I can't be a Republican. Once he gets into this warmonger bullshit, this stuff where Afghanistan is the evil of the world, and the entire Middle East needs to be paved over, he's still in that boomer con mindset. He always is. And that is going to become more prevalent as we get further and further away from one of the few non-war-loving presidents that we have out there. And that is, yes, in spite of what the LP says about him, because they need to get their people elected, even though it's never going to happen. So that is Lindsey Graham for you. Let's grab one from Politico. 5 takeaways from Ketanji Brown Jackson's Supreme Court hearing. From Josh Gerstein and Marianne Levine. Republicans unloaded a broad arsenal of attacks on Supreme Court nominee Ketanji Brown Jackson on Tuesday, confronting her on issues ranging from her sentences for child porn, defendants to her representation of Guantanamo Bay inmates, to alleged acts of judicial activism. But as the hearing passed the 12-hour mark, Jackson seemed largely unruffled. In a few instances, her irritation with the questioning led to respondent delivered, "With all due respect," when it seemed that she didn't think much respect was due. The barrage of questions is scheduled to continue tomorrow with another marathon session where the 22 Senate Judiciary Committee members will get at least one chance to press Jackson again on the issues they consider most urgent. Here's a look at some of the most notable exchanges and themes to emerge on Jackson's first day of grilling. Cruz ties Jackson to critical race theories, but other Republicans pass. At the confirmation hearing for the first black woman nominated at the Supreme Court, one might have expected extensive back and forth about issues of race, but few senators seemed eager to dwell on that topic. Good, now stop doing this fucking grilling and go and confirm her tomorrow. One who defied the trend was Senator Ted Cruz, arguing that Jackson has ties to CRT, a view of pervasive racism in American society and a favorite target of Republicans in recent months. After reminding viewers that he regularly reads Martin Luther King's letter from a Birmingham jail on the Senate floor, Cruz said Jackson's role at the board in Washington's elite Georgetown Day School indicates she's an adherent of CRT. "If you look at the Georgetown Day School's curriculum, it's filled and overflowing with CRT," Cruz declared. On large placards, the Texas senator displayed graphics from a book he said urges teaching that some babies are racist. Jackson said she has nothing to do with the school's curriculum, but she rejects the idea. "Senator, I do not believe that any child should be made to feel as though they are racist or as though they are not valued, that they are victims or that they are oppressors," the judge said, which I'm sure is something the White House set her practicing on as much as they could, because they knew, or they thought rather, because it doesn't look like it actually did come to pass, that this was going to come to pass. However, the Senate's committee's only black member, Cory Booker, said Cruz's effort to link Jackson to CRT fell short. "We have a saying in New Jersey, all hat and no cattle," Booker quipped. Wait, should I be doing this when I talk about Booker? He had to go put his angry eyes on. Late in the session, Marsha Blackburn briefly resurfaced the critical race theory issue, imploring Jackson to grant public school parents the right to prevent their children from being taught such concepts. "It is important to them to have a Supreme Court that's going to protect parental rights and teach these children as parents see fit to have their children taught," Blackburn said, before launching an attack on another hot-button topic, the rights for transgender people. The tension on racial issues seemed more palpable outside the hearing room than inside. African-American lawmakers condemned a tweet from the Republican National Committee that included a photo of Jackson and showed her initials being scratched out and replaced with the letter CRT. See this right here? This, as I mentioned before, is why Republicans lose in 2022. Because their people their people in the Senate have, for the most part, been good about something like this. But the RNC, the Ronna McDaniel RNC, can't fucking help themselves. Cannot help themselves to go back and do stupid fucking bullshit like this. On child court sentences, Jackson turns the tables on Congress. As Jackson faced an onslaught of Republican criticism over her sentencing of child porn offenders, she sought to direct the blame towards an institution far more unpopular than the federal judiciary, Congress. Jackson politely told senator after senator that if they were unhappy with her sentences in such cases, they could look in the mirror. "The evidence in these cases is egregious," Jackson told Cruz. "The evidence in these cases are among the worst that I have seen, and yet, as Congress directs, judges do not calculate the guidelines and stop. They have to take into account the personal circumstances of the defendant because that is a requirement of Congress." That is a fair point. Turning the tables on her lawmaker critics, Jackson argued that her sentences are Congress's fault because of a 1984 law that sets out factors judges must consider, including limiting unwarranted disparities between offenders. And as much as I do hate all of this, and as much as I do know that there is a lot of interstate trafficking there does need to be something on the federal level. Most of this should also be done on a state level. And yes, those people at the state level should be dropping the motherfucking hammer on people who would take and distribute kiddie porn. But that should be done on a state level. You all decide. You decide what the penalties are. You decide what the factors are that judges use to sentence, she said. Republican senators noted that Congress initially made the sentencing guidelines mandatory, so Jackson and many other judges wouldn't have had the chance to opt for lower sentences in some cases, but in 2005 the Supreme Court ruled that guidelines could only be advisory, not mandatory. Senator Josh Hawley argued it was disingenuous for Jackson to deflect blame to lawmakers. Congress wanted them to be mandatory, he said. You have discretion in these cases, and you used that discretion to choose the sentences that you did. And again, as I go back with this, Jackson's actually right. If you want to change the law, make the law. You can't change the law from the bench. While Ketanji Brown Jackson said for decades she called Breyer, for whom she clerked, my justice, she broke with him on several occasions Tuesday as she sought to court the votes of Republican senators. In his first round of questions, Chuck Grassley, the top Republican in the Judiciary Committee, asked Jackson about Breyer's remarks that a judge can't perform their job properly without keeping in mind international law. Jackson responded that while she has nothing but the highest esteem and respect for her former boss, there are very few pieces that I think in which international law plays any role, and certainly not in interpreting the Constitution. Later in the confirmation hearing, Ben Sasse pressed Jackson on which justice she's molded herself after. Jackson responded, "I don't really have a justice that I've molded myself after," she added. She's reluctant to establish or adopt a particular label. Jackson stated that she believes the Constitution is fixed in its meaning, but said there are times when looking at those words are not enough to tell you what they actually mean. Is Jackson in an information bubble? While Jackson held forth a wide range of legal issues Tuesday, there were moments that seemed to expose what were sometimes surprising gaps in her knowledge. Although she spent most of the 2000s in Washington working as a public defender for a private law firm, Jackson said she's never come to her attention that Democrats blocked W's nomination of California Supreme Court Justice Janice Rogers to the D.C. Circuit. GOP senators complained bitterly at the time that the resistance was due to fears that putting the African-American conservative female justice on the appeals court would be a stepping stone to her nomination to the Supreme Court by Bush or another Republican. "I didn't know that," Jackson said under questioning by Lindsey Graham. So that's what we see off of that. And then, of course, Lindsey Graham storming out. Scrabbling from the USA Today. Ketanji Brown Jackson getting the respect that Amy Coney Barrett was denied, from Jonathan Turley. This is an op-ed. So the views of this do not necessarily reflect the views of the USA Today or the views of Contemporary or TurnsThePagesProductions.com. This is from Jonathan Turley. The famous gonzo journalist Hunter Thompson once said, "Politics is the art of controlling your environment." The confirmation hearing of Ketanji Brown Jackson is about to definitively show what Thompson meant. Less than 2 years after the abusive treatment of Amy Coney Barrett, the Senate is holding a hearing that is dramatically different in the treatment of the Supreme Court nominee, and the issue is considered relevant to her confirmation. For those with memories going back to 2020, there have been striking differences on how the media have covered Jackson's nomination in recent weeks. When Barrett was nominated, the media ran unrelenting attacks on her and her background. Nothing was viewed as out of bounds, from her religion to her personal life to fabricated theories of prior assurances on pending cases. From the start of the Jackson hearing, this is clearly different in both optics and approaches. Barrett was surrounded by pictures of people relying on the Affordable Care Act, a framing to portray Barrett as threatening the very lives of sick people. It was all part of the absurd claim, fostered by liberal legal experts, that Barrett was appointed to kill the ACA. I objected at the time that senators were radically misconstruing the pending case and that Barrett was more likely to vote to preserve the ACA. Barrett ultimately voted to preserve the act as expected. There'll be no gallery of endangered people surrounding Jackson. Most senators will give her the confirmation hearing that was denied to Barrett respectful and civil. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. Yet the Jackson nomination should not be treated as inviolate. Almost immediately after Jackson's nomination, liberal members and commentators made clear that past questions or criticisms would not be tolerated or even would be declared racist. And that's the point right there. For example, while past Republican nominees were called political deliverables on presidential campaign promises, the phrase was declared categorically offensive by Amy Klobuchar in this nomination. That is a triviality in comparison. Yeah, I want to see if she ever raped anybody too. That's a triviality in comparison to a more substantive and outstanding questions. While every prior nominee has been subjected to questions about judicial philosophy, it was declared a racist dog whistle to even note that Jackson's philosophy is not clear, particularly given her past refusal to discuss her policy. So, and I mean, you knew this was going to happen no matter what. You knew, and this is the reason that she was nominated to begin with. It's not about her qualifications, which are actually good. She has good qualifications for this office. She is a good fit for the office, but she was put up there so that you could get campaign ads of Republicans saying things that are allegedly honk-honk, racist, and sexist. So that's what we see off of that. From the Hill, Jackson forcefully pushes back against GOP child porn sentencing attacks. From John Cruzel. Let's actually listen.
Another issue that came up yesterday in the opening phase of this nomination hearing, and it's the issue involving child pornography. I want to turn to that issue because it was raised multiple times, primarily by the senator from Missouri. And he was questioning your sentencing record in child pornography cases that do not involve the production of pornographic material. I thought about his charges as I watched you and your family listening carefully yesterday and what impact it might have had on you personally.
As a mother and a judge who has had to deal with these cases, I was thinking that nothing could be further from the truth.
Richard, I thought.
And of course, now it's got to go back and load back up to the top of the article once again. So, and now we get an advertisement too on top of that. A Lexus advertisement. Don't you guys want a Lexus?
Let me address another issue that.
All right. So, I mean, realistically, I do want the kitty diddlers to get the book thrown at them no matter what. Because I do want to see the protection off the kids. But I understand that's not always feasible for somebody coming from the government. And I do hate the government more. Regardless, I hate the government more. But let's see what they have to say here. Ketanji Brown Jackson opened the second day of her confirmation hearing Tuesday with a forceful defense of her record sentencing child pornography offenders, pushing back against a recurring Republican attack line leveled against her. On her questioning from Dick Durbin, Jackson was asked to address a claim by Josh Hawley on Monday that her treatment of sentencing child sex offenders showed an alarming pattern of leniency. As a mother and a judge who's had to deal with these cases, I was thinking that nothing could be further from the truth, Jackson said to Durbin, who chairs the Senate Judiciary Committee. Jackson said that as a sentencing judge, she puts great weight on victims' perspective when addressing offenders. I tell them about the adults who are former child sex abuse victims tell me that they never have a normal adult relationship because of this abuse. I tell them about the ones who say I went into prostitution, fell into drugs, because I was trying to suppress the hurt that was done to me as an infant. Almost every one of these sentences, when I look in the eyes of the defendant who's weeping because I'm giving him a significant sentence, what I say to him is, do you know that there's someone who has written to me and told me that she developed agoraphobia? She cannot leave her house because she thinks that everyone she meets will have seen her. I will have seen her pictures on the internet. They're out there forever, and the most vulnerable time of her life. And so she's paralyzed, she added. I tell the story of every child porn defendant as part of my sentences so they understand what they have done. Which, honestly, is a little bit out of the... Now, I understand that they're trying to do a character attack on somebody that they can't do that with skin color, religion, or anything else, because that'll be seen as racist. You know, when it's Brett Kavanaugh, when it's Neil Gorsuch, when it's Amy Coney Barrett. Oh, it's just another white Christian Supreme Court judge that's going to come out to try to end... They're going to try to end abortion. They're going to try to chain the women to their stoves. And they can't do that, but they're still trying to do a character attack off of this. Ketanji Brown Jackson is on the Court of Appeals. So she's not even handing out sentencing anymore. And she's being appointed to the highest court of appeals. So she's not handing out sentencing anymore. So a lot of this is really not even valid to the point of what we're doing here. But they've got to find something to run the attack on, I guess. From the Daily Wire, the title card of this episode. Jeffrey Toobin says kiddie porn sentences are too harsh because the internet makes access easier. Yes, that Jeffrey Toobin. The person who got suspended and then ultimately reinstated at CNN for whipping his crank out on a Zoom call and starting to beat off in front of everybody with his camera on is telling you how you should feel about sexual cases. Let that sink in for just a moment. This is from Virginia Kruta. CNN legal analyst Jeffrey Toobin suggested Tuesday that sentences for people possessing child porn might be too harsh. Largely, he argued, because the internet made such content far more accessible. Toobin joined host Katie Bolt-Duan at CNN's At This Hour to discuss the ongoing Senate Judiciary Committee hearings for Supreme Court nominees Ketanji Brown Jackson, and the topic turned to child porn after several Republicans questioned Judge Jackson's record on such cases. Let's listen.
One of the moments I wanted to play from early on in this hours that we're going to be hearing of this hearing, from these confirmation hearings. Nia Malika Henderson's with us as well. Just to set this up, to remind people, Nia, and then I want you to weigh in. The chairman of the committee, Dick Durbin, he spent several minutes and questions on this main line of attack that we had seen was going to be coming in from Republicans, specifically Josh Hawley, which is that the argument being the attack that the judge has been lenient in the past in sentencing of people guilty of child porn crimes. She was asked to respond. Let me play what she said.
As a mother and a judge who has had to deal with these cases, I was thinking that nothing could be further from the truth. When I look in the eyes of a defendant who is weeping because I'm giving him a significant sentence, what I say to him is, do you know that there is someone who has written to me and who has told me that she has developed agoraphobia? She cannot leave her house because she thinks that everyone she meets will have seen her pictures on the internet. They're out there forever. At the most vulnerable time of her life.
You can feel the heat there, Nia. I mean, what did you think of that?
Yeah, incredibly moving to see her. I had first heard that just on the radio as driving in to work, but to see her there so moved, almost crying, and certainly emotional in that moment, thinking about more generally and specifically how she is captive of the radical left.
Hold on, we want to hear Toobin. We don't want to. No offense to the other people on this panel, but we're here to hear Toobin right now.
As she said, when she approaches these different issues.
Came up, I remember, when I was an assistant about these kiddie porn cases, and this came up, I remember, when I was an assistant U.S. attorney back in the 90s, is that when those sentencing guidelines were written for those cases, this was a time when the people who committed these crimes would order individual photos and then get them usually through email. And then they would be sentenced based on the number of photos they possessed. This was all pre-internet. So once the internet came in and people got access to hundreds and then thousands of photos, the sentencing guidelines would reflect hundreds and then thousands of photos. Federal judges have been struggling with the issue of how do you create a fair system that was designed pre-internet, that was, yet you have to sentence people post-internet. And what I thought Chairman Durbin pointed out is that judges across the country, including Republican-appointed judges, have been saying, look, we can't apply the rules that were designed pre-internet for an internet society, and many judges have been giving somewhat less sentences as a result. And I thought that was a very clear explanation of why Judge Jackson imposed sentences that were all prison sentences. It wasn't like she was letting these people go, but they were somewhat less than the guidelines because the guidelines had not been adapted for the internet era.
Everyone.
So, Toobin, if you take his words at the value off of that he makes this, he does make a good point off of the accessibility and the fact that, some of these people can get 1,500 years or 1.5 million years in cases because of the access that they have off of there, because of the way that it's off of. But, honestly, because it has to do with kids, I'm kind of okay with that. I really am. If it didn't have to do with kids, I would say, no, let's not let the government step in. I have very, very, very little use for the government, but as far as it goes with protecting kids, I consider that to be one of their very few legal standpoints. And again, I would very much rather this be done off at the local level than doing it as a federal crime as well, but on a dry read of what Toobin had to say, I can see where he's coming from off of it, but still, let's get these kitty diddlers 1.5 million years. But that's what Toobin had to say. And immediately after the Daily Wire cut off this piece of video here, Toobin whipped out his crank on screen and started beating furiously. Let's grab one from the Hill. So we're going to move off the Jackson hearings here. We're going to move into some of the other stuff that we've got going on, because we are already, again, running up off the clock. It's a consistent issue with as much news as they keep cramming in here. RNC launches voter registration initiative at gas stations amid rising prices from Lexi Lonis. The RNC launched a voter registration initiative that will run at gas stations across the country in the upcoming weeks, amid a sharp rise in fuel prices. As gas prices in the country hit record highs, the RNC will be holding several voter registration events across the country in the coming weeks. Information about the events that shared with The Hill said. The first event took place in Arizona Saturday, where volunteers and staff registered Americans to vote from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. local time. Republicans have slammed President Biden over high fuel prices as the country continues to grapple with record inflation. The president warned Americans that the price of fuel was likely to climb even higher earlier in the month when he announced that the U.S. would ban oil imports from Russia amid its war with Ukraine. Arizonans are frustrated with paying the record high prices that we've seen recently. This is an issue that affects almost every single Arizonan, Ben Peterson, the communications director for Arizona's RNC, said. And this is not a bad idea, especially if they want to win. Now, they're probably not going to win because they're going to continue to pull stuff that the DNC can turn around and use as racism in the Ketanji Brown Jackson hearing, but, hit the people where they're at. It's the same thing that I tried to talk about with Terms of Pages. I can sit here, I can go out, get a law degree, make a buttload of fucking money, and then preach to you about what you should be doing in a $100,000 suit and tell you what you're doing wrong from my ivory tower. Or I can come out in a t-shirt in front of a Gadsden flag at a $100 desk with a can of Bang in my hand, and not can of Bang, but cup of Bang, because again, since it's not paying me, it's not going to be in their vessel, but with a cup of Bang in my hand and a cheap apartment in southern Wisconsin, and tell you, hey, this is what's going on, make your own decision. It's very important to meet the people where they're at. And again, to be there with you as a person who's had to make some of these decisions myself. Not the people who are up there in the $1 million suits in the CNN newsroom saying, this racist Republican wants to stand at the gas station and hassle you about how you're going to vote. This is a brilliant idea. I would add, go to the grocery store as well, because your food prices are climbing too. Ask the people as they're coming out, hey, what was on your grocery bill? Especially if they come out with a big cart that looks like they're feeding a family of 12. If they come out with that big cart, say, hey, what did that cart full of groceries cost you versus what it cost you a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago? That absolutely needs to be where they're at. So definitely go, and if you're getting gas, hear the person out. See what it is that they have to say. We've got a tweet here from the red-haired bobblehead. Press secretary, at press secretary, says, today in preparation for travel to Europe, I took a PCR test this morning. When the PCR test circled back, it came back positive, and which means I will be adhering to CDC guidance and no longer be traveling on the president's trip to Europe. Okay, Peter, next question here. Please be nice to me. Reading from WLWT5, White House Press Secretary, red-haired bobblehead, tests positive for COVID-19. This comes to WLWT5 out of CNN.
I'm planning to meet with...
Go away. Also, you go away. White House Press Secretary, red-haired bobblehead, announced Tuesday that she tested positive for the pinko fucking pox for a second time. I think it's been more than that. And is experiencing mild symptoms less than a day before President Brandon is scheduled to depart for his trip to Brussels and Warsaw. Bobblehead 43 confirmed the news early Tuesday afternoon. Today, we read the tweet already. Bobblehead said she would return work from home and return to working in person at the conclusion of the 5-day isolation period and a negative pinko pox test. Biden, who Bobblehead had previously said tested negative for the pinko pox, also tested negative on Tuesday by a PCR test. I circled back to the White House and had 2 socially distanced meetings with the president yesterday, and he's not considered a close contact as defined by CDC guidance. I'm sharing the news of my positive test today out of an abundance of transparency, Bobblehead's statement said. And yet, I feel like there is something else going on. Bobblehead last tested positive in the eve of his last foreign trip in October. Isn't that funny? Deputy Press Secretary Chris Meagher stepped in to fill in for Bobblehead at the White House press briefing, thanking reporters for their flexibility with the adjustments as he kicked off the briefing. Meagher said members of the press who attended Monday's news briefing were not considered close contacts, that the White House is currently conducting contact tracing. He added that the White House is currently conducting contact tracing, but any member of the press corps who's determined to be a close contact would not have been exposed through Monday's briefing. Basically, it's don't ask questions. Oh yeah, she totally tested positive, but don't ask questions. And oh, by the way, you're all safe. So you don't have to go out and get tested. You don't have to worry about it. You're all safe. So that's interesting. Jeez.
The White House says the
Stop autoplaying, goddammit. But that's what we see from that. Speaking on that trip from the New York Post. White House, Biden to visit Poland and Euro trip, on a Euro trip rather, for urgent NATO talks. From Patrick Riley. President Brandon has added a stop to Poland during his European trip this week to discuss the dire situation in Ukraine with NATO and European allies as Russia continues to bombard Ukrainian cities, while millions of civilians attempt to flee nearly a month into its invasion. Biden will fly to Warsaw on Friday following his trip to Brussels, where he's scheduled to meet with NATO allies, G7 leaders, and European Union leaders to discuss humanitarian efforts in Ukraine and economic sanctions on Russia, White House Press Secretary Red-Haired Bobble said in a statement on Sunday night, before she mysteriously tested positive for the pinko fucking pox. The communist cooties, the commie coof. He will meet with President KTZed Duda. I have no idea how I'm supposed to pronounce that. On Saturday, to discuss how the U.S. and its allies are responding to the humanitarian and human rights crisis at Russia's unjustified and unprovoked war in Ukraine has created, Bobblehead said. Poland, a NATO member, state that shares a border with Ukraine, has been hosting thousands of American troops and has taken in more than 2 million refugees who have crossed into the country from Ukraine. Poland has been asking NATO allies to consider getting more involved in the neighboring country to help stop the country's conflicts, to help stop the bloodshed. Biden has no plans to travel to Ukraine. Why would he? White House officials said Secretary of State Anthony Blinken briefly crossed into neighboring Ukraine during his visit to Poland earlier this month in a show of solidarity against Ukraine's foreign minister, Dmytro Kuleba. On Monday, ahead of his trip, Biden will discuss the war with European leaders, including Emmanuel Macron of France, Olaf Scholz of Germany, Mario Draghi of Italy, and Boris Johnson of the UK, the White House said on Sunday. This is going to be fun, and I hope we get another... I really hope, by the way, that we get another image of Biden standing in the middle of everything, having a dementia moment. And then Jill having to come in and rush in and whisk him off the stage. I hope and pray. From Axios, Biden to announce additional Russia sanctions during European trip. From Zachary Basu. President Brandon tends to announce a new Russia sanction package during his visit to Europe this week, including measures to crack down on sanctions evasion, White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said at a press briefing on Tuesday. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky pleaded with the West to impose new sanctions every week until the Russian military machine stops. Biden will travel to Brussels on Wednesday for an emergency meeting with the leaders of NATO, the G7, and the European Union before heading off to Warsaw to meet with the President of Poland and experts involved in humanitarian efforts. So, I don't know if we have any details on what the sanctions are going to be, but yep, he's going to go slap another set on there. Have fun, people of Russia. This is from The Hill, and I'm a little bit interested in this. The memo, Biden will play for high stakes on European trip. From Niall Stanage. President Biden will fly to Brussels Wednesday to begin the most important overseas trip of his presidency so far. Biden's itinerary includes a NATO extraordinary meeting, a G7 meeting, and a summit of European leaders, all on Thursday, and a one-on-one engagement with the president of Poland, Dude, come on! There are 4 consonants in a row. KTZed Duda on Saturday. Suggestions that Biden might meet Ukrainian refugees while in Poland remain unconfirmed for now. He won't. The trip offers both opportunities and pitfalls for Biden exactly 1 month into the Russian invasion of Ukraine. On the plus side, he can underline his leadership of a strong multilateral coalition. Yeah, leadership. That's what we're going to call. Jake Sullivan said during Tuesday White House briefing that Biden's mission would reinforce the incredible unity that has been fostered so far. The alliance's unity is really remarkable. Biden's admirers, his simps, note the stark difference between his approach to international alliances and that of his predecessor, Donald Trump, because they have to get his name into their mouths. The alliance's unity is really remarkable, said Max Bergman, the senior fellow for Europe and Russia at the Center for American Progress, a liberal think tank. Biden has been able to erase the bad taste that's been left in the mouth by Donald Trump, evil Donald Trump, over his 4 years and transform the West. On the other hand, Biden must also contend with tensions between those European nations that want to do more to aid the Ukraine and the U.S. position, which has prioritized not escalating the conflict. Biden has not been shy about warning of the dangers of World War III, but the admin's de facto rejection of Polish offer to send and make fighter jets to the Ukrainians via the U.S. base in Germany was especially contentious. That decision, more than any other, also led to an erosion of the bipartisanship in Washington that had marked the earliest days after Russia's invasion. I simply do not understand the logic for not getting the MiGs to the Ukrainians immediately. Senator Warmonger Romney said at the time, it makes no sense. Ooh, I know why he didn't do it. I know why he didn't do it. Because there would be a nuclear bomb on his motherfucking doorstep if he'd have done that. And he knows that. So, yeah. I can't wait to get the video clips off of this one. From the New York Post. White House prepping plans to help vulnerable Ukraine refugees enter the U.S. As long as they vote Democrat. The White House is expected to announce a plan in the coming days that would make it easier for vulnerable Ukrainian refugees to enter the U.S., a report said. The plan, which would be unveiled this week, would enable activists, journalists, and Ukrainians who are members of the LGBTQIA plus RRP MQ27R2R community to travel safely to the U.S. and stay temporarily, sources told NBC News. I knew it! It's going to be as long as they support Democrats. And probably not vote Democrat, but support Democrats. It would also speed up the process of reunifying Ukrainians with family members in the U.S., sources told the network. Biden admin officials alluded to the plan Tuesday without sharing any specifics. It's weird. Within the first 2 years of the Biden presidency, we suddenly now have refugees pouring in from 2 countries. Which we did under Trump too, don't get me wrong, but not nearly to the level and not as publicized either. Biden admin officials alluded to the plan on Tuesday without sharing any specifics. Jake Sullivan and Biden will announce further American contributions to a coordinated humanitarian response to ease the suffering of the civilians inside Ukraine and respond to the growing flow of refugees as long as they sleep with the right people. That's interesting that it, of course, comes on the caveat of the alphabet mafia. What else do we have? So this is a few days old, but was brought up yesterday again. Smoke can be seen coming from the Russian embassy in the Polish capital city of Warsaw. There are claims that diplomats are burning documents. The same thing was done in the Russian embassy in the Ukrainian capital city of Kiev right before the invasion of February 24th. Are they burning the documents? The world may never know. Show me the documents! The documents! Come on! I need to see the documents. They're putting chemicals in the water. Turn the frickin' frogs gay! From the Associated Press. Ukraine thwarts Russian advances. Fight rages for Mariupol. From Nebikena. and Kara Anna. Ukrainian forces battled continuing Russian efforts to occupy Mariupol and claimed they have retaken the strategic suburb of Kiev on Tuesday morning, mounting a defense so dogged that it's stoking fears from Russia's Vladimir Putin will escalate the war to new heights. Putin's back against the wall, U.S. President Joe Biden said, who's heading to Europe this week to meet with allies. And the Moor is back against the wall. The greatest severity of tactics he may employ. Biden reiterated accusations that Putin is considering resorting to using chemical or biological weapons. Yeah, this sounds like Bushite kind of stuff. Though the Pentagon spokesperson, John Kirby, said the U.S. has seen no evidence to suggest that such an escalation is imminent. The warnings came as attacks continued in and around Kiev and Mariupol, and people escaped the battered and besieged port city. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky accused Russian forces of not only blocking humanitarian convoy trying to take desperately needed aid to Mariupol, but seizing what other Ukrainian officials said were 15 of the bus drivers and rescue workers on the aid mission, along with their vehicles. Zelensky said Russians had agreed to the route ahead of time. We are trying to organize stable humanitarian corridors for Mariupol residents, but almost all of our attempts, unfortunately, are foiled by Russian occupiers, by shelling or deliberate terror, he said in a nightly video address to the nation. And I will give support to the people that are pushing back, that are on the ground. Again, I really don't have any love lost for the Ukrainian government because they don't know enough about what's going on in the situation. Because for the most part, all we get is either the 4chan side of things that say that Ukraine is automatically always wrong and hail Putin, or we get the mainstream media side that says that Putin is the root of all evil because of the fact that they installed Donald Trump and Zelensky and the Ukraine are saintly. But what I will say is for the people on the ground, the citizens, who have the chance to come out and say, "Get off my motherfucking lawn," with a rifle in their hand, good on you. That's the American dream. But that's what we see off of that. From ABC News, Ukrainian forces on offensive, Russia combat capability falls below 90%. Pentagon update. From Luis Martinez. So a lot of the same thing that we just saw in the last one. I just wanted to get the statistic out there because the U.S. seems to think that that's 90% efficiency or lower on the Russian side. Which again, I don't think that they're sending their best. From Politico, Pentagon scrambles to replenish weapon stocks sent to Ukraine. From Lee Hudson and Paul McCleary. The Pentagon is rushing to replace thousands of U.S.-made Javelin and Stinger missiles pulled from European and American stockpiles for use in Ukraine, but the multi-billion-dollar effort is still waiting on the military and defense industry to figure out how to ramp up production quickly. Oh, they'll find a way, because then they're going to make a bunch of money and pass that along to their senators and representatives. Congress has declared that it's all in on the restocking effort, forking over $3.5 billion to the Pentagon this month alone as part of the $1.5 trillion government spending package. Of course they are, because they're going to get a cut out of it. What's still unclear is how and when the Pentagon will spend that money. Oh no, it's very clear how and when the Pentagon is going to spend that money. That is going to be paying off Lockheed Martin to launder the money and give it back to the senators, who cut such a large check to the Pentagon and to the defense contractors. From the Daily Wire. This is interesting, debunking Zelensky's outrageous claim that Ukraine rescued Jews during the Holocaust. From Ian Haworth. In a controversial speech on Sunday, President Zelensky sparked outrage when he compared the Russian invasion of Ukraine to the Holocaust as he spoke to the Israeli government. This Russian invasion of Ukraine is not just military operation. As Moscow claims, this is a large-scale and treacherous war aimed at destroying our people, destroying children, families, our state, our cities, communities, our culture, and everything that makes Ukrainians Ukrainians. Everything that Russian troops are now destroying deliberately in front of the whole world, Zelensky said. This is why I have right to this parallel and comparison, our history, your history, our war for survival, and World War II. Zelensky's portrayal of history is patently inaccurate. It's demonstrated by the response of multiple Israeli lawmakers. Between 1941 and 1944, over 1 million Jews living in the Soviet Union were murdered as part of Nazi Germany's final solution, with the majority of those murdered in Ukraine. While Zelensky claimed that Ukrainians made their choice and rescued Jews, this is only true for the comparative handful of heroic non-Jewish Ukrainians. 2,619 as of 2018 who defied the Nazi quest for the eradication of the Jewish people. According to Dieter Pohl, a German historian, approximately 100,000 Ukrainians voluntarily joined the police units that directly assisted the Nazis, while others complied in other ways, such as supporting logistical efforts or directly participating in the mass murder. Now, with that being said, Israel has an agenda with this, Germany has an agenda with this, and Ukraine has an agenda with this. So I don't necessarily tend to come out and believe everything that is put here. And Shapiro, by the way, has an agenda with this as well, just so you know. I don't believe all these facts on face value. I'm going to tell you that right now. Because everybody involved in this has an agenda. But there is some dissent among the numbers regardless. So that's what we see off of that. Alright, let's talk some gas price stuff. Gas price stimulus checks. Here are 3 bills being proposed. From WKYC Studios out of Cleveland, Ohio. From Travis Pittman. House Democrats have introduced multiple proposals aimed at sending direct payments to the Americans to help cover high gas prices. The plans have some similarities to the ones that sent the $1,400 stimulus checks to millions last year during the pinko fucking pox. Gee, I wonder how much the big oil companies have paid to these congresspeople in the state and in the federal level to get these checks back out here for people to go pay for gas. And how much do you think is actually going to get sent out to pay for gas? The national daily average has been more than $4 a gallon for 2 weeks. It was $4.25 on Monday, down 7 cents from a week ago, but still 72 cents higher than a month ago, and $1.37 more expensive from the same date last year. AAA cited lower crude prices as one of the reasons for the slight drop in the pump last week. It also said demand for gas is down, which is atypical for this time of year and may be a sign of people changing their driving habits. This is an admission that the Democrats have failed. One proposal by Mike Thompson of California, John Larson of Connecticut, and Lauren Underwood of Illinois would send what they call an energy rebate of $100 a month for individuals or $200 for couples, plus $100 for each dependent for each month on the national gas. The gas price exceeds $4 a gallon. The rebate would be in effect through the end of 2022. The payments would go to people based on their income and would follow the same guidelines for the 2021 economic impact payments. Single filers earning up to $75,000 or married couples filing jointly earning up to $150,000 would be eligible. A statement on Thompson's website did not explain how that would be paid for. Surprise! But here is the problem. When the government, especially when Democrats do it, but when the government does it, because Republicans, you're not getting off the hook for this one either. Looking at you, Donald. But when the government starts trying to send you free money, it's because they're scared. They're scared, they're terrified that you're going to start to see past their bullshit. And they are. This is their last-ditch Hail Mary. Especially in an election year. Especially in an election year. Hey, kids, you want free money? Have some free money. Don't worry about where it's going to come from. Just have some free money, you guys. From the New York Post. Florida man allegedly hacked gas pumps to get pennies on gallon. I'm thinking that's pennies per gallon as prices continue to soar. From Salim Algar. It's a pump and dump scheme. 4 Florida men were busted for installing devices inside gas pumps that dropped the prices down to nearly nothing. An alarming trend that officials said will only spread with fuel costs soaring. The Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services said the suspects installed sophisticated pulsators inside the pumps that regulate price and fuel flow. The devices sent per gallon cost plunging down to just pennies and allowed pumpers to fill up for almost free. The fraudsters allegedly pulled off the scheme at 2 separate Circle K stations in Lakeland and Lutz. Rogelio Lorena and Yulier Garcia Martinez were busted in March 12th while topping off an oversized gas tank in Lakeland. Garcia Martinez even had a remote device to manipulate the pulsators, officials said. Yordian Diaz Benitez of Tampa was arrested at Lutz for stealing diesel fuel on March 10th. Marlon Rosel Rodriguez was cuffed 2 days later for attempting to place the device inside a pump at the same station. Ned Bowman, president of the Florida Department of Agriculture, said skyrocketing gas costs have fraudsters licking their chops. These are criminal rings, Bowman told the Post. I think you're going to see this expand. And if they're actually stealing, well, we will let the people who had to pay for the gas to get it there decide their fate, I would think. Alright, let's grab one from the Daily Wire. Alcohol-related deaths soared during the pandemic, outpaced the pox for adults under 65, study says. The number of deaths in the U.S. from an alcohol-related cause soared during the coronavirus pandemic, jumping 25% year over year in 2020, according to a new study. Researchers with the National Institute on Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism published the results of their study into the number of alcohol-related deaths during the pandemic in the Journal of the American Medical Association last week. The New York Times, a former newspaper, outlined the results on Tuesday. The numbers are 99,017 in 2020 from 78,927 the previous year, an increase of 25% in the number of deaths in 1 year. That compares with an average annual increase of 3.6% in alcohol-related deaths between 1999 and 2019. Deaths started inching up in recent years, but increased only 5% between 2018 and 2019. Well, you take away the ability to go make a living, you lock people in their homes, and what do they turn to? The cheapest rot gut tequila that they can find at the liquor store, which is ironically in a Ziploc bag right now with shrimp and lime juice and a few other ingredients in my fridge for tacos that are coming up on Thursday. All these are going to be so good. But realistically, when you do the lockdownerism thing, on top of taking people's income and their ability to make a living away from them, there are couples out there which have raised full families that exist explicitly on the fact that they never see each other. It's sad, I know. The only reason that my one ex that I lived with and I stayed together so long is because we worked opposite shifts. And we only saw each other in passing throughout the day. Like, she was already, because she worked so early in the morning and I worked second shift at the time, she was already long since in bed by the time I got home from work. And then before I woke up, she was up, out, and on her way to work, and we only really saw each other on the weekends. And it worked for us. But if the lockdown had happened while we were living together, we might have actually killed each other. Because by the end of it, we hated each other so much. It might have happened. And there are thousands of couples like that across the country. So it's either you sit there and you get dependence on alcohol because it's the only way you can stand to be around your partner. And that's just one of the aspects. Again, you have nothing to do. You need to feel that hit. You need to feel that high. You need to get out of the house. You need to forget about the fact that you just lost your job. Your job shut down because of the pandemic. Couldn't afford to stay open. Paycheck Protection Act failed. Stuff like that. And what do? What? But of course, this is something that we've been telling people since May of 2020. And now the mainstream media, the New York Times, is first starting to get to it. All right, let's do some libs of TikTok. Let's do some culture stuff. We can still get to some of this stuff, can't we? I think we can. I don't think we're going to get to this down here, but I think that this is going to be Thing I Hate tomorrow anyway, so... Because Thursday is Thing That I Hate. Here's some libs of TikTok for you. After an Oregon school banned Pride and BLM flags, these two middle school counselors responded with this TikTok. I have not pre-listened to this one, but I'm guessing this is going to be incredibly intelligent. Are you ready?
A, B, C, D, E, F, you and your mom and your sister and your job and your broke-ass car and that's it you call art. Fuck you. A, B, C, D.
As much as I can't stand to live where I grew up anymore, sorry people I grew up with, but I can't stand to live there. You guys ruined it for me. Man, am I glad I grew up in a small town and shit like this didn't happen where I grew up. It just didn't. I've never been more thankful for that fact than right fucking now. These two teachers, of course, have expectedly been paid on been put on suspension. Details not clear at the time whether it's a paid suspension or not, but they are out of the classroom. But if the school board is going to ban something and these people are going to say fuck you to their employers, well, they got what they deserved. Andy Garfield. If we only let people play exactly who they are, it'll be the death of imagination. From a job in Sainsbury's to a $1.9 billion film and now an Oscar nod, how the star of Spider-Man and Tic Tac Boom, conquered Hollywood. Which is interesting, of course, because, I never really heard of Andrew Garfield until The Amazing Spider-Man, which I like the Amazing Spider-Man movies. I know apparently that is a sin to my more geeky friends, but I like the Amazing Spider-Man films with Andrew Garfield. I like those ones. I enjoyed them very much. But I had no idea that Andrew Garfield was British until long after I saw the first Amazing Spider-Man film. Because he was able to play the New York accent so well. I had absolutely zero idea. It was the proudest gig to date of Andrew Garfield's career, standing on top of a bin in central Madrid while playing air guitar with a tortilla trip. He was 21 and had only appeared in a handful of small plays since leaving drama school. But then his ship came in, a part in a Doritos advertisement, which was about to shoot in Spain, and paid £2,500 for 2 days' work. Back then, Garfield was renting a room in a mouse-infested flat in northwest London and making ends meet behind the Starbucks counter in nearby branch of Sainsbury's. Then suddenly someone wanted to pay me lots of money to go to this glamorous place abroad and brandish a chip, he recalls, over tea in West End Hotel. 17 years on, it's easy to see it as the first step in a path that would lead to 2 Academy Award nominations and the shared title role in the 6th highest grossing film ever made. But at the time, it felt like it was a way to keep doing plays that were covering the rent. That's largely what Garfield spent the £2,500 on. The rest went to a new bicycle and a meal with friends. And I don't want to go completely through this because we are up on time here, but yeah, given the fact that Garfield is saying that yes, you can only play X role if you are X kind of person, because Johansson got into it with the press for trying to play a trans person, even though she is very, very clearly a woman. Or there have been other accusations of people who played crippled people that aren't actually crippled. Like the guy in Glee, the kid in the wheelchair in Glee. He wasn't actually in a wheelchair in real life because he got up and walked around in some of the fantasy segments. If you can only play the kind of person that you are, then there's no imagination. Hell, look at Mike Henry from Family Guy, who played Cleveland forever, or Hank Azaria from The Simpsons, who played Apu. Both of them lily fucking white. Both of them embracing a character so well that you were convinced that they knew the struggle of the character. There's an immense amount of imagination into stuff like this, and Andrew Garfield, again, I mean, he's good. He's good at what he does. How Andrew Garfield just became a white supremacist. By the way, speaking of Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire, of course. Is it Tobey Maguire was his name? The first one. Not a New Yorker, but still having the American accent off of this. But why were our last two Spider-Men on screen? Why were the last two British? Because Tom Holland is British too, isn't he? More Don't Say Gay stuff from the lips of TikTok. Disney employees in California HQ stage a walkout while chanting "Say Gay" to protest Florida's anti-grooming bill. So stunning and brave. Let's see how stunning and brave these people actually are. Say gay, 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 say gay. I'm sorry, what was it we're supposed to say? I didn't catch that. Did anybody catch that? Alright, from Rolling Stone, speaking of that. We're walking out. Raven's home cast joins Disney staff protesting Don't Say Gay bill. Because they never read the bill, they just take what Disney told them to think. From Althea Legaspi. You know, I'm using Rolling Stone a lot lately. Raven Simone and the cast of Disney Channel's Raven's Home walked off the show set on Tuesday in solidarity with other Walt Disney Company employees to protest the Don't Say Gay bill. Why are they using a woman as the title character of a Disney show that's the same age as I am? Don't they usually center it around the kids when it's a Disney show? What? I don't know. I haven't watched Disney in a long time. I mean, I watched the Mandalorian and Clone Wars on Disney Plus, but that's different than watching the actual Disney Channel programming. But yeah, didn't they usually for a long time have the show centered around the kid? Not the washed up actress who's crawling back to Disney for another chance? In support of our LGBTQ family and all those who will be damaged by a Don't Say Gay bill, the cast of Raven's Home are walking out. She captioned a video post on Instagram, which included castmates Isaac Ryan Brown, Rondell Sheridan, Michelle Harris. Aren't all these the same people from That's So Raven? Emmy Lou Wang and Felix Abitia. In today's world, it's imperative that we take stand, show support, and move forward, not backwards. Let's listen.
What's up? We're the cast of Raven's Home and the EPs, and we are walking out today in support of this ridiculous bill! We don't like it! We're walking out. It's stupid! Stupid bill. We love everyone and support. Bye!
She got loud. That means she means business, you guys.
Bye! We out! We walking
Every family, every person, every child deserves to be recognized, no matter their race, gender, or sexual orientation, she continued. Education that reflects the truth of the world that we live in is something that we must fight for. Right, but why are you so obsessed with the idea of doing it for 4-year-olds? What else do we have here? Rogan has something to say about what's going on here. That's always fun. I think a lot of people are saying, no, I just don't want you grooming my kids for whatever your ideologies you want to teach them. Fuck science, teach them math. Rogan drops common sense on those still calling it the Don't Say Gay bill.
Like this "Don't Say Gay" thing in Florida. When I heard that, I was like, "What? What are they saying? You can't say gay? Is that really what's going on?"
Is that,
it turns out that's not what it is.
Yeah.
It's not what it is
Yeah.
at all. What it is ages. It's 1st through 3rd grade. They're saying you're not supposed to talk about sexual orientation, gender orientation, or sexual proclivity, or what you're interested in.
Yeah.
They said you should just teach math and science and history to little kids.
Yeah,
And
just let the toddlers be toddlers,
Yeah.
and then you can start ramping up your instruction.
And people are opposed to that. But it's like, listen, your teachers are not supposed to be the people that explain gender to a fucking 7-year-old.
Yeah.
It's just, and who are these teachers? And how do you know what their perspective is? Are they intelligent about it? Are they trying to indoctrinate the child to any particular point of view, whether it's pro-transgender or anti-transgender or anti-gay or pro-gay? They shouldn't have any say at all when you're talking to a 7-year-old kid. I mean, I feel like that is the job of the parents.
Yeah.
That's the job. I mean,
and you hope the parents are doing
right.
it, but
when kids get older and they develop feelings for either the same sex or opposite sex, or they feel like they're in the wrong body, then these conversations should be had by qualified people that can discuss this from a nuanced perspective and understand what the psychology of a young person who's trying to figure out who they are in the world is. But the idea that this is don't say gay, right, because you're saying that ages 1st grade to 3rd grade, that you shouldn't be bringing up these subjects to them. I mean, I think a lot of people are saying no.
By the way, does anybody in the live chat right now that's still in there, does anybody know who the guest is for this? Because I kind of want to listen to this episode. And I do want to go through Rogan and see if there's anybody interested in interesting in the last few weeks. I haven't listened to any of that for the last few weeks, but just to see if there's anybody interesting that's on there. So if anybody knows who the guest is for this, I would love to hear that. But again, Rogan, well, let's just wait for Spotify to come back and cancel him again, because that's probably coming after this. All right. Do we have time for one more? I think we're just going to do something that that restores my faith in humanity and head out of here for the day, because, well, we do still have some stuff to do. Let's do one more. Report. Disney will take action against Texas for calling sex change procedures for children child abuse. From Chris Pandolfo. As part of Walt Disney's continuing effort to kowtow to its left-wing employees, the company will reportedly take action against Texas for the state's order to investigate sex change procedures for transgender children as a form of child abuse. The Daily Wire's Megan Basham reports that Disney CEO Bob Chapek led a company-wide meeting on Monday in which he apologized again for the company's initial neutrality towards Florida's parental rights program in education bill, which would ban teaching children kindergarten through 3rd grade about sexual orientation and gender identity. Basham reports that Chapek thanked LGBT plus employees for their feedback and admitted he made mistakes regarding the company's response to the Florida bill, and also said the pain this community experienced was not just about this one piece of legislation, but about not being there any time this community has been hurt. The meeting reportedly featured a panel with speakers from LGBTQIARRMP2+7G+, Activist groups, in an address from Nadine Smith, the executive director of Equality Florida, a Disney staffer who spoke to the Daily Wire, reportedly said the panel discussion was about wanting Disney to indoctrinate kids. After the discussion, the company's chief human resources officer, Paul Richardson, announced Disney will take action against Texas Republican Governor Greg Abbott's order to have the state's Department of Family and Protective Services investigate reports of gender dysphoric children undergoing sex change procedures as child abuse. Do you have a park in Texas? Because of our presence in Texas, we want you to know that we've signed on to the Human Rights Campaign's letter opposing the Texas bill that criminalizes parents who provide for their transgender children gender-affirming care, Richardson said, according to the Daily Wire. The gender-affirming care Richardson referred to that is considered child abuse under Abbott's order would be sex change procedures, including castration, surgery to remove male genitals, surgeries to remove the female reproductive system, plastic surgeries to construct artificial genitals, or so-called top surgery to remove female breasts, or any procedure that removes a healthy or non-diseased body part or tissue from children when not medically necessary. Providing cross-sex hormones to children, including puberty blockers, unnatural doses of testosterone for females, and unnatural doses of estrogen for males, also potentially constitutes child abuse under Abbott's order. The Human Rights Campaign, an LGBTQIAR+ activist organization, purchased an ad in the Dallas Morning News earlier this month announcing that more than 60 major companies had signed onto its open letter opposing alleged hateful attacks against transgender people from Abbott and Texas AG Ken Paxton. Okay, here's the deal. Now, you are the guardian of your child. And I am against the government coming in and telling you that how you can raise your child. I am against the criminality of it. Realistically, the child care, the transgender care, that is between you, your child, and your doctor. As much as I don't like any of it going on, that is between, and the government doesn't have a place in this. But what I do know about this as well is I should still have the right to fucking ridicule you if you believe that this is the best way to go do it. Now, and this is what it goes as far as children, especially young children, which are the people who are being indoctrinated to come out and do this. But what I can tell you right off the bat is, on top of this, oh, we gotta put them on puberty blockers, otherwise they won't be able to make an informed decision. No, let them go through puberty, because they can still get the same surgeries as adults. I know somebody who has. But if they're having these feelings, and they're actually legitimate, as you tell me that they are, they will still be having these feelings when they are 18 years old, and both having a more developed mind, and the ability to legally make their own decisions and not hold you accountable for them. So just be patient and wait. If you want to dress them up as the opposite gender, that's on you. That's between you and their school kin, or with them. If you want to get them out there and, change their names, call them she, her, and they, them, and all the rest of the thing. Yes, I get to ridicule you for it, but it's still ultimately your choice. You are the parent. But again, they will still have these feelings when they are 18 and out of your house. Presumably, if this goes the way that you guys tell us that it goes. So that's something else to keep in mind with this. There's no reason you have to do it at 6 fucking years old. And with that, it is 9:30. We are going to head out of here for the day. But before we do, the last thing that we do, because I try to white pill a little bit off of this here, make sure that, you guys go out of here with the thought that stuff might be okay after all. And one of the things that goes along with that is something that I'm thankful for. And I'm looking back at this too. Now there are parents out there who are supporting and condoning this. this transgenderism, well, first and foremost, I'm thankful that my nieces and nephews live far enough away from any of this that they're for the most part insulated from all this. I don't know what the school and Redacted is actually saying about all this stuff, but I can't imagine it goes over well in the farming community if they are going into this LGBTQ stuff with the kids. For the most part, Pugsley Wednesday and Jack Jack are going to have a normal upbringing out there, as far as I can tell. But what I'm really thankful for is the fact that more people are waking up to this. More people are looking into this and saying, hey, what the fuck? Okay, if they wanted to grow up and be sexual into their teens once their nuts drop, then that's on them. We support it if they come out. You know, we'll be disappointed that we don't have grandkids or whatever, but we'll support it as they come out and this and that and the next thing. But it's gone in such a short time from that to preach the homosexual agenda to 6-year-olds and transition them at that age. And we're talking in 20 short years. This will be the 20th year I'm out of high school. And I mean, at that time, in small town America, that was when homosexuality was first starting to be accepted among teenagers. I don't even think it was accepted at the time, because I know that the girl that I had the biggest crush on in high school was going out with a guy who came out as gay after high school. But just in 20 short years, we've come down to the point of, you know, let's go to acceptance and love is love to, hey, let's chop off your cock at 6 years old. But I see that people are starting to push back on this. They're starting to see this. They're starting to say, hey, wait a second. There seems to be something else going on here. Maybe that slippery slope that we contended was a fallacy, maybe it really was. We don't know. And a lot more people seem to be looking at this and saying, hey, you know, it's fine. Do what you want to do, live the way you want to live, which is the way that I do it too. That's between you and God at the end of the time. I can advise you, I can tell you, hey, this is not kosher. Don't do this way, but ultimately it's your decision. And then you have to talk with Jesus and St. Peter at the end of time. I know a lot of the people that are into this stuff don't believe in any of that, but that's on you at the end of time. But more people are starting to wake up and say, hey, you know, they're trying to come out and they're trying to change our kids. They're trying to do this, do that, the next thing. And that's the big part, is people are starting to wake up. And we see the same thing with the Biden admin too. I mean, the RCP, Biden is back in the fucking toilet. People are starting to realize, even the progressives are starting to realize that they didn't get what they wanted out of the progressive movement. They voted a Stewart so they wouldn't have any mean tweets, and now their lives are going into the shitter too. The mainstream media will do everything that they can to try to hold this administration up and tell you that it's perfect, it's wonderful, it's amazing. Don't ever question the narrative of the mainstream media. But people are starting to look into the outside. They're starting to turn to people like, unfortunately, Tim Pool and Christensen, who, again, even though I have personal differences with Christensen, I will never advise anybody to not go watch his program if they enjoy it. I will never ask anybody to boycott Christensen, because he is a good source of information. Despite my personal differences with him, he is a great source of information. But people like Porch Boys, like Poole, yes, like I said, unfortunately, like even Rogan to an extent, even though he is propped up by the billionaire class in and of himself. He's a millionaire himself. But also this grassroots side, the Brian Nichols Show, the Porch Boys, Daily Ignoramus. People are starting to see through the veneer of what we see off the mainstream media. And that's the reason I take the mainstream media for the most part. To show you what the veneer is and try to crack through some of the veneer and say, hey, this is what they're telling you and this is what's actually happening. But it's the waking up that I'm starting to see here. There's still going to be a mainstream media. It's still going to be a billion-dollar industry. It's still going to be propped up by major nations. But the chinks are in the armor. And I'm happy for that. It may never break, but it might get damaged here. So that's what we see off of that. Let's throw some outro music up and let's head out of here for the day, shall we? All right, so we're going to head out of here for the day. Thanks, everybody, for coming by, chatting, hanging out with us. Looks like we saw some new faces in here today, so that was pretty cool. And some familiar faces as well. Very active chat today. We'll have a lot of messages in when we come in. And by the way, if you guys do just lurk, get a few messages in because I do say thank you at the end of the week. I've got the handy-dandy notebook with everybody's names in here. Tell a few friends, get some more people in here. Let's see if we can't fill the pages of this notebook here. Otherwise, we're going to head out of here for the morning. I got to get myself some breakfast and get to work. You guys have got to get to your jobs, and the Daily Ignoramus is going to be coming up later. So we will see you guys next time over here in the morning for more Contemporary. So definitely looking forward to that. We will see you then, and until then, I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. And I won't lose my scene this time. Take care, everyone.